everybody is a supplier. Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it.
I infiltrate the Illuminati, find out what the they got going on, get the information, run back to y'all, tell y'all everything I know. That's my motherfucking job.
Let's be clear about something before we go any further. Katt Williams is not some fringe conspiracy theorist posting from a basement. This is a man who was offered money, women, fame roles in some of the biggest films ever made and said no. Every single time. Not because he couldn't use it, because he understood what saying yes actually meant, and that refusal cost him enormously. Hollywood didn't just turn their back on Katt, they came after him. His contracts evaporated, his character was demolished in the press, and when none of that worked, according to Katt himself, they went after his children. 9 separate child welfare visits. 9. The last one didn't even happen at his house. They went to his office and removed his kids from there.
This is their 9th time coming to my house. The problem was this time they came to my office and took my kids from an office. Not from my house, from an office. So now when I can't have my kids at my office,
that's an issue.
I must be the
definitely.
most terrible black dude. Because here's the whole thing. You gonna charge me with child endangerment? After I adopted 7 children and had them for 14 years in this state? Really? You coming after my kids now? Because it was already a witch hunt.
7 adopted children, 14 years, and they tried to frame him as a danger to them. That's not a coincidence. That is a calculated strategy to discredit a man before he gets too loud. The same strategy, by the way, that was used on Wendy Williams, on Dave Chappelle, on anyone who stepped out of line and refused to play the game. But here's the thing about Katt. He kept talking anyway. Now let's talk about Ellen DeGeneres, because on the surface, this looks like a story about a talk show host who had a rough few years. Toxic workplace allegations, show ratings dropping, a quiet exit from television. But when you line up the actual timeline, and I mean actually line it up, what you see is something very different. Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison on June 28, 2022. 5 counts, conspiracy, transporting minors, all tied to a decade of crimes with Jeffrey Epstein spanning 1994 to 2004. That same year, 2022, Ellen shuts down her show. Not because the ratings were unrecoverable, not because she was tired. She walked away from a production generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually. You don't leave that kind of money on the table because you're having a bad season. Then comes Donald Trump's election win, and within weeks, Ellen and her wife, Portia de Rossi, reportedly fled the United States, not for a vacation home in Europe, but permanently. Rural England, their Montecito mansion listed for sale. Friends told the election was the reason. But here's what Katt Williams said about that kind of thinking, that nothing in this industry is ever just a coincidence.
What I'm saying is, in business, nothing is coincidental, or you will be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money.
Because here's what was happening at the exact moment Ellen left. The Epstein files were beginning to drop. The Diddy case was accelerating, and according to multiple reports now circulating in media, Ellen's name was appearing in connections to both. Reports allege Ellen was working as a contact for Epstein's network inside Hollywood. Her personal friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell, documented through social appearances and mutual elite circles, is not disputed. What is disputed is what that friendship actually involved. What we do know, Ellen's story about her workplace, her exit, her timeline, none of it has been consistent. As one broadcaster put it in a recent documentary panel discussion,
her stories have changed so many times about what happens, when it happens, how it happens, with different versions. And each time she speaks, there's a different version.
changing stories, shifting timelines, fleeing a country before files are released. These are not the behaviors of someone who has nothing to hide. These are the behaviors of someone who knows exactly what's coming. And then there's Stephen Twitch Boss. Twitch was the executive producer and co-host of The Ellen DeGeneres Show. He was one of the most beloved personalities on daytime television. Always smiling, always warm. The kind of presence that made you feel like everything was okay, even on your worst days. In December 2022, just 2 months after Ellen fled to the UK and completely changed her public appearance, Twitch was found dead. He had checked into a motel a mile from his home, switched his phone to airplane mode so no one could reach him, and checked in under his own name. He left a note. The details of that note were never fully released to the public, but TMZ reported the note referenced challenges Twitch had faced in the past. What challenges? What was he carrying? Reports suggest the note included language about being unable to continue being part of the industry, about shame, about staying silent. A man who spent years putting a smile on camera while allegedly witnessing things he could never speak about publicly. And this is where Tyler Perry's words become unexpectedly relevant. Perry, who has his own complicated history with Hollywood's power structures, opened up about a period in his own life where the weight of what he was carrying almost became too much.
Take you back to a time in my life where I tried to commit suicide a couple of times because it was so dark. I thought the only way to make this better, this pain go away, is to end my life. Had any of those attempts happened, I would have missed the best part of it.
Imagine having to perform happiness to produce it, to package it, to sell it to millions of people while something dark is eating you from the inside. Twitch did that for years, and when he was finally free of the show, free of the machine, something broke. Katt Williams has been saying for years that the entertainment industry destroys the people it can't control and silences the people it can. Twitch's story may be the most tragic illustration of that truth. Now let's zoom out, because what we're really talking about here isn't just Ellen DeGeneres. It isn't just one show or one friendship or one suspicious departure. What Katt Williams has been trying to get people to understand is that there was a system, an organized, deliberate, highly protected system. Ghislaine Maxwell didn't work alone. Epstein didn't work alone. The scale of what they built, hundreds of victims, flights across multiple continents, a network of elite clients, does not happen with two people. It happens with an apparatus. Maxwell was the most visible recruiter. She was effective precisely because of how she presented herself: polished, wealthy, connected. She approached young girls who had nothing and positioned Epstein as a benefactor who wanted to help them. Multiple victims have confirmed that the most devastating part of Maxwell's approach wasn't the abuse itself. It was that she found you at your lowest point and used your pain as a weapon. But Maxwell was just one recruiter among many. FBI files from the latest Epstein file releases confirm that Jean-Luc Brunel, Epstein's modeling scout and one of his top facilitators, had offered to cooperate with investigators and expose the entire network in exchange for immunity. The DOJ ignored him. He was found dead in a Paris prison in 2022.
One of Epstein's, it says what appears to say BFs, best friends perhaps, Jean-Luc Brunel, has, quote, helped get girls. He is wanting to cooperate. And it goes on to discuss a plan for that, and that he's hired a lawyer and how that would work.
The man who could have named everyone died in custody before he could say a word. That is not a coincidence. That is how systems protect themselves. And according to Katt Williams, Hollywood was wired into that system at the highest levels. Producers, executives, talent scouts. The same people who handed out contracts and decided who got famous and who got blacklisted.
Why those one world people exist, because it's a very powerful concept to have and far too lucrative and beneficial to not. Everybody is a supplier. Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it.
Suppliers. That's the word Katt used. Not participants, not clients. Suppliers, meaning they were actively sourcing, actively delivering, actively participating in a pipeline. If you want to understand how this machine protects itself, you have to look at what happens to people who speak out, not abstractly specifically, because the pattern is undeniable once you see it. Wendy Williams built a career on saying what no one else would say. In 2013, she went on record and stated plainly what she believed was happening in hip-hop: the forced feminization of male artists, the closeted culture, the control that certain producers wielded over performers' identities. And she named Diddy specifically, said she had been fired for trying to expose him years earlier.
There was a radio personality once upon a time. Her name was Wendy Williams, and she was practically burned at the stake for about such. And now it's all...
Shortly after that interview, Wendy Williams was diagnosed with dementia and placed under a court-appointed guardianship. She was moved into an assisted care facility in New York. No internet, no visitors. Allowed outside twice in 30 days. Force-fed daily sedatives. A new medical evaluation ordered by her own legal team later found she does not have frontal temporal dementia. She does not have frontal lobe dementia. The diagnosis that was used to strip her of her freedom, her career, and her voice was false.
Wendy Williams is locked in a room in an assisted living facility in New York. That's her. The only way I could interview her was to have a camera in the street, because we can't get a camera in. She can't really have any visitors. She cannot go outside. She's been out twice in the last 30 days. She has no internet. She, and I think rightly, says she feels like a prisoner.
Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, confirmed on record that Diddy was directly responsible for Wendy's blacklisting, that he held the entertainment industry in a grip so tight that anyone he wanted destroyed simply could not work. Not in film, not in radio, not anywhere. And anyone who defied that, they'd find a way to make sure they couldn't speak.
People don't understand about Puff is that he held the entertainment grip, especially for the people who was his former artists, in a chokehold. If you didn't do what he say do, if he didn't like you, you would never ever work for Bad Boy or anybody in the entertainment business again. He did it to Kirk Burrow. You understand? He did it to Wendy Williams.
And then there's Dave Chappelle. Dave had a $500 million contract with Comedy Central. He walked away from it, not because he was a crackhead, despite what you were told, but because he understood exactly what Katt Williams has been saying for years, that the money is a trap, that once you take it, they own you. And when you stop being profitable or start becoming a problem, they destroy you with the same machinery they used to build you. Katt described what the executives said to Chappelle when he tried to negotiate fairly for his share.
You mean he made $500 million and they offered him 50? Yes. And he said, what do you think my fans are gonna say when they find out you offered me 10% of what I made you? And they said, your fans will believe that you're a crazy crackhead by the time you get home. And my nigga got on the flight in LA, and by the time he got to Ohio, it was so.
That is the machine, not a theory, not speculation. A documented operational suppression system where the same people who give you your platform can take your reputation, your sanity, and your freedom, all before you land at the airport. Now let's talk about the specific names that have emerged as this story continues to unravel. Because beyond Ellen, Katt, and others have pointed to a constellation of celebrities whose connections to Epstein's world are now documented, alleged, or deeply suspicious. Chris Tucker, a man Katt once respected, someone who famously turned down major roles because he didn't want to portray negative images of black men to children. That integrity was real, but what followed was troubling. Photos and flight manifests have been released showing Tucker on Epstein's jet, what victims called the Lolita Express, alongside Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and others, on a trip to Africa billed as a humanitarian mission in September 2002. He said it in 2017. Tucker confirmed the flight in an interview, saying he didn't know whose plane it was, but flight attendants who worked that jet testified something different about the reality of what happened on those flights.
Everything that happened on the Lolita Express and his other planes was the same thing that happened in his bedrooms and the massage rooms, on the beach, wherever we were. They did not stop because we're in the air. 95% of the time, there was always sex involved. Jeffrey couldn't take a 2-hour flight without having to ejaculate.
She was not a conspiracy theorist. She was an employee, someone who watched it happen and had to find a way to survive it, numbing herself with Xanax just to function. Her account puts names and faces on what the flight logs represent. Then there's Oprah. Katt has nodded toward Oprah as someone whose proximity to power and whose stamp of approval made certain behaviors seem safe and normalized. The Skin Medica moment on Steve Harvey's show, where a product endorsed by Oprah was described as being derived from human tissue, sent shockwaves through online communities. Whether or not that connection is as sinister as some have claimed, the pattern of elite celebrities actively promoting or associating with practices tied to Epstein's documented interest in genetics, stem cells, and anti-aging is a pattern that deserves scrutiny. And Harvey Weinstein. Katt has spoken about Weinstein with a particular kind of precision. He allegedly met Weinstein at a point when Weinstein's power was at its absolute peak, and Weinstein offered Katt exactly what the machine always offers: access, women, silence, recruitment. Katt said no, and that decision defined the rest of his career in ways both costly and clarifying. If you want to understand who is being protected in this story, you don't need to follow the money. Just follow Ghislaine Maxwell's prison experience. Maxwell was convicted on 5 counts and sentenced to 20 years. She's currently housed at the Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas, a minimum security facility. And what happens there for Maxwell is unlike what any other inmate experiences. Access to a laptop unheard of in federal prison, private showers, private TV access in staff-only areas, a personal umbrella for her daily walks, and a puppy. A prison consultant with 3 clients at the same facility confirmed it. Inmates were reportedly threatened.
Told from the day she got there, do not discuss her, do not put anything in writing, do not talk about her on the phone, do not make any trouble regarding Miss Maxwell, or we will move you to another location.
And in a jailhouse interview released by the DOJ, Maxwell herself, sitting comfortable, composed, was asked directly about Epstein's client list, whether it existed, whether she knew about blackmail.
No list. There is no, I'm not aware of any blackmail. I never heard that, I never saw it, and I never imagined it.
The list doesn't exist. Flight manifests don't exist. More than 400 powerful individuals from around the world have already been connected to Epstein's through documents that do exist. 3 million redacted files were recovered. That's not even half of what was found. And Maxwell, the woman who organized his inner circle, who arranged meetings with tech billionaires, who knew every detail of his operation according to 18,000 emails recovered from his personal Yahoo account, says there's no list. She's comfortable in her minimum security country club prison. Here's what makes Katt Williams different from every other voice in this conversation. He's been saying this for years, not since the Epstein files dropped, not since Diddy was arrested. He went on record nearly a decade ago and described a supply chain, a deliberate, profit-driven system where Hollywood's most powerful figures sourced human beings for the world's most powerful clients. He said it again when he sat down with Joe Rogan. He said it when he talked to Theo Vaughn. And every single time, the industry tried to make him look unstable, troubled, unreliable. The same playbook they ran on Chappelle, on Wendy, on anyone who got too specific about what they knew. But the documents are starting to catch up to what Katt was describing. Epstein emails referencing genetic harvesting. Doctors on Epstein's payroll who were allegedly managing the women in his orbit, dictating their medical care, performing procedures in his dining room, sharing their private information with him. Doctors now appearing in public life, on bestseller lists, hosting podcasts named in thousands of pages of Epstein files. And Katt himself acknowledged he knows the clock is running.
How many more times I'm gonna be able to sneak in there? Thanks to Shannon Sharp and 90 million views, I can't sneak very often. So while I was in there this last time, knowing that my last report might be my last report, I went in there and I got information for everybody.
His last report might be his last report. Think about what that means. A comedian, a man who makes people laugh for a living, talking like someone who knows they are being tracked, being watched, being measured for when they've become too much of a problem. The same way Twitch was measured, the same way Wendy Williams was measured, the same way Dave Chappelle was measured and then burned. So let's connect it, all of it. Ellen DeGeneres, close personal associate of Ghislaine Maxwell, shuts down her multi-hundred-million-dollar show the year Maxwell is sentenced, flees the United States permanently weeks before Epstein files begin dropping. Her executive producer dies 2 months later, with a note referencing shame and silence. Ghislaine Maxwell, living in a minimum security camp with laptop access, private showers, bottled water, and a puppy, while other inmates are threatened with solitary for talking about her. Her DOJ interview features calm denials of a list that 400 documented names suggest absolutely exists. Wendy Williams institutionalized, medicated, imprisoned in an assisted care facility after exposing Diddy with a dementia diagnosis that her own medical evaluation later disproved. Dave Chappelle publicly destroyed as a crackhead within hours of threatening to expose his contract dispute, kept off screens for nearly a decade. Jean-Luc Brunel, Epstein's modeling scout, willing to cooperate and name everyone, found dead in a Paris prison before he could say a word. And Katt Williams offered everything the industry had, refused every single time, and is now talking like a man who knows his window is closing. These stories don't exist in separate lanes. They are one story. A story about what happens when the most powerful people in the world decide that certain information must never reach you, and about the handful of people who have spent their entire careers trying to make sure it does. Katt Williams told us everything. He said it in code. He said it in jokes. He said it on podcasts with 90 million views. And every single time, the machine tried to make sure you dismissed it. The files are dropping, the names are coming out, and the people who ran are running.